Welcome to the Equity Teacher Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rachael Mahmood. In this podcast, we'll dive into the stories, the voices, and the expertise of incredible teacher leaders who are making a difference through the equity work they do in their classrooms and their communities.
Welcome back to another episode of Equity Teacher Leader Podcast. I'm super excited today to have a very special guest on the show with us. This is Comfort Agboola. Did I get your name?
That's correct.
Yes, awesome. And Comfort is the 2024 Milken Award winner. We're going to hear a little bit about the Milken Award, but first tell us where you teach, what you teach, where you're from.
So I'm actually 23, the 2023. Yeah. So 24 is coming up though, and I'm excited to see who that's going to be. I'm a middle school English teacher in Chicago Public Schools, and also the owner and operator of my own educational consulting company, Lit in Love, where I focus on writing instruction. I've been teaching for 13 years, but been in education since I was 17 years old.
Wow. And where do you teach again?
Teach at Poe Classical. So it's on the south side of Chicago, Pullman neighborhood.
Nice. Well, super excited to have you on as the 2023 Milken Award winner. And I think we have to know a little bit about what is this Milken Award? I had never even heard of it before until literally we were up there on the stage. I knew that they were going to announce that I was the 2024 Illinois Teacher of the Year. And then all of a sudden they're like, and now we're going to honor the Milken Award winner. And it was like, wow, this is such a big deal. And I did hear you got $25,000, which is amazing. But what is the Milken Award? What is the organization about?
So I actually never heard of it until they showed up at my school. Even then I was like, what? Milken? Okay. So Milken Family Foundation is the big organization, but the Milken Award, so they focus on celebrating, activating, and elevating teacher voices. And so they look around the country for teachers to recognize and to celebrate. It's really congratulatory of all teachers. They also focus on elevating teacher voices. So things that we're passionate about, things that we want to bring more attention to, and then also activating us. There's a slogan, be 10% bolder. So that's been my mantra to go into this school year with, be 10% bolder.
I love that. Yes. And we love bold educators, right? You're getting it done in the classroom. So absolutely love that. And, what I was surprised to learn about is you can't nominate somebody for a Milken Award. There's nowhere to go to kind of submit somebody's name. So this is really just an honor. And, you're incredibly lucky that this great opportunity fell across your desk. I know some former Milken Award winners, and they create a network. That's like a family of resources that you're going to have for a very long time. So congratulations on that. So when I saw your name right away, I was like, I need to ask her, is she Nigerian? I have a small love obsession with different cultures in Africa. I know a lot about Nigerian culture. I think the first time we connected, I was like, tell me, what are you, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa? I absolutely love learning about West African cultures. And, I would love to just know a little bit more about, being a Nigerian teacher and maybe a little bit of that confusion around, being Black, being a Nigerian teacher, being an African teacher, and then being an African-American teacher. How is your experience unique?
So just that blend, like what you were just saying about being Nigerian and having that African-American heritage. So it's like those two narratives woven together. And now there's this different connection. So with my dad's side, he's from Nigeria. He was born there. There's this richness of Nigerian traditions, like that value of community, storytelling that perseverance passed down through generation after generation after generation. So there's this honoring of someone's roots. And on my mother's side, there's still all of those things, but then there's this resilience and this enduring spirit of being African-American and being a descendant of enslaved people. So on both sides, there's this hope, there's this creativity, there's this resourcefulness, there's this determination, and bringing that into the classroom, it always reminds me of the sacrifices, the prayers, the miracles that paved the way for my life, and how much responsibility that is. And also, how can I show my students their strength and their unique stories and the power in their voices to tell their story, not to have someone else tell theirs.
I really love that, and I think that I love how you teased apart, being Nigerian and being African and what's unique and special about that identity. And then also being African-American and how that can be a unique identity. I think that those identities are often conflated, right? And people don't realize the uniqueness and the richness and the separateness of those two cultures. I always joke, like, I have the same skin color as somebody who's Mexican, but I'm Indian, and I would not consider Indian culture and Mexican culture to be the same just because we have the same skin color. But I like how you also interwove and said, here's the intersectionality, of being African-American and then also being of West African culture. It's really beautiful. So, you talk about, the power of story and the power of identity. Those are things that are really important to me, that we tell each other's stories, that we tell our stories, that we learn each other's stories in the classroom. I was wondering, what's your story of getting into education?
So, like I said earlier, I started in a classroom at age 17. That was my high school, Mother Macaulay Little School. So I got to work with students that were 3 or 4 years old at that age. And that's when I was like, oh, I really love this. I don't know if I can work with really tiny kids like that age all day, but the idea of this is a responsibility, but also an amazing ability from the hours of 9 to 4 to really transform someone's life. And education really transformed my life. My mother was a high school teacher in Chicago public schools. So just seeing how much she created this learning space for her students, I wanted to do that as well. I wanted to create a space for people that their voices often aren't seen or heard in spaces. Like literacy is a huge thing right now across the country, where we have books being banned, and that means stories are being banned. So we have to fight to have our stories told and fight to be the ones that tell them.
That's so beautiful. And, the whole storytelling tradition, right? It's so important. You just touched on it from the Nigerian side, the Nigerian culture as well. And I think about how many students come from these incredibly beautiful oral cultures, right? Where I joke, I suffer from verbal vomit, but yet writing constipation. And so when I go into my classroom, I also have a lot of students that are from oral cultures. They also suffer from verbal vomit and writing constipation. Orally, they can tell us a lot, right? And then we tell them to sit down and write their stories. And then all of a sudden, it's like they're stuffed. And I'm running around like a crazy teacher trying to get everyone to be able to start the writing. And I know you have the Love and Lit, or Lit and Love?
Lit and Love.
Lit and Love consulting business. And also, I'm sure a big part of why you were chosen as a Milken Award winner is because of the focus you put on literacy. And you were telling me a little bit about your open mics and, when we were chatting earlier about some of the things you do to bring that orality to writing. And I thought that would be a great instructional practice to share with teachers across Illinois. So can you tell us a little bit about how you bring in that orality in your classroom to help build those writing skills?
Yes. So I also know that teachers don't have a lot of time in the day. So this is something that takes like 10 minutes every day. So I start with a prompt or a question. After a while, students start giving me prompts and questions. So this brings in their voice into what they want to write about. But to start off, I give them a prompt or a question and I have them talk about it. Talk with a circle of people about this question. So this gets all of that, like you said, the word vomit. Let it flow. Let it flow.
Let it flow.
We just gotta let it flow. And then throughout that time, they're actually writing down some notes of what they're talking about. So it's just like this map of just everything that they said. And everyone gets a copy of that. So when it's time for pre-writing the next day, you get that copy of what everyone was saying. And now you start drafting some things.
My gosh, I love that because that's like communality, right? Like we have so many communal learners. Like I don't want to write this paper in isolation. I want to write it in community with other people. So seeing everybody's note, I'm sure makes everyone feel so much more supported in that process as well.
Yes.
Tell us more.
It's kind of like, instead of just having your idea wall, you've got a little bit of everyone's ideas. So then we move into the peer discussion. So after you draft it, and it's a little bit sloppy, we don't care about spelling or grammar at this point. We just start reading each other's writing. So now we've moved into a writing circle where everyone's sharing what they have. So you're getting that feedback. So I like to use tag, tell something you like, ask a question, and give a suggestion.
Okay, so tag is tell something you like. A is ask
a question. And then G is give a suggestion.
I like that. Tag, you're it.
Tag, you're it. So from that peer discussion and feedback, they have all these things that their peers have said that they really liked about it. They've asked some questions. So things that maybe they need to clarify or extend on, and then a suggestion. So from teaching writing, I'll always tell my students that you all have the best ideas. Of course, I can look at this teaching manual and textbook, but you all know what you like to read and you know what you like to listen to. So we're going to pull from each other as a resource. And then that's the community part as well. So pushing past that peer part, then we move into the revision. So this is on like the 4th day. So now we're doing each of these things every 10 minutes. The 5th day is individual conferencing. And that's when they talk to me and we start polishing our pieces. Day 6. So of course there's like that oral history, but we still have students that struggle with public speaking. So day 6 is open mic rehearsal. You get to practice in front of your group of peers that are in your writing circle. So it's like a little small group. And then the 7th day, that's when we have our open mic celebration. So students come up, they actually have their own MC. So I'm a spectator. I get to watch.
Love that. I love that. So like there's a student MC and this is like the sharing portion of the publishing process, right? Yeah. The writing process. And so what does that look like? Do you have like microphones? Is there like speakers? Is there a stage?
So there are microphones. So one for the author and one for the MC. There's a speaker setup so everyone can hear very clearly. Of course, some lighting, just like behind me. And it's really
listeners. She's got lights. You have to check out the vodcast on. This will also be posted on YouTube, so you can see her beautiful classroom behind her with all of her lights. This will also be on Spotify, so if people are listening, they'll be like, "What's behind her? Please describe."
Yes, check it out.
Love it.
So it is like a stage setting, but also it's a community. So we clap it up. We give our snaps. We just celebrate each other in this moment. It's not about critiquing. It's just about, oh, I really love your line. Okay. So students have to say what they like about each other's writing. I have a guide that I walk them through. And it's like a mini lesson. So if we were working on sensory language, then they have to listen very carefully for their peers' sensory language. And they name a line that really stuck out to them. And it doesn't have to be a lot, but maybe their use of adjectives really stood out to them. And they give a compliment that's really specific. And the look on students' faces, the smile, the warmth, they just feel like, oh, can we keep doing this? And I'm like, yeah, we're doing it every 7 days.
Like, surprise.
Yeah. So and then after that, they're like, oh, can we do it more? Can we do it more than just every 7 days? But they just love to share what they wrote and just that community that we're all unfinished products. So students really support each other. There's that SEL component that they really enjoy being around each other. And now they get to share in that academic part.
That's beautiful. Now, when after student performs, are there claps or are there snaps?
There's a mixture. So
we got like poetry, so I got some snaps in.
I
love it. I love it. Okay, so let's say a teacher was like, I love this, Comfort. I want to do this in my classroom. Give us like 3 steps just to get started. I mean, obviously theirs might not look exactly like yours, but what's 3 things they could do to get started with just building this orality into their writing process?
So I would start first with the prompt question and having students verbally share that. Select a student to be the recorder and get them just thinking verbally out about the question. So that is it's a very important critical thinking skill to be able to process through your thoughts kind of on the spot and also bounce off of each other. So you're listening, you're thinking, and then recording some of your thoughts down. I would start with that part, and then I would start with some pre-writing. So 10 minutes every day, and you can alternate between those. So 10 minutes one day, they talked about the prompt. 10 minutes, they pre-wrote. 10 minutes the next day, they talked about a different prompt. The next day, 10 minutes pre-writing. And the pre-writing is to help them build that stamina for writing. They get to process through, and then they get to record the next day. All of that helps them immensely with just enjoying writing. Second thing that I would recommend for teachers is to spend 10 minutes and have students read their writing to someone else. They get to have feedback. They get to have that discussion. And oftentimes they'll see things in their own writing that they might want to add or clarify just from reading it out loud.
Right.
And that final thing to bring in even more oracity or orality is to bring in those rehearsals for the open mic.
Yeah.
So you might not be ready to start a whole class open mic, but with a small group, have them read their writing with each other. So they've taken themselves all the way through the writing process. And now it's like a mini open mic, a mini session of publishing their writing. That way you'll get to kind of plan out what your celebration is going to be for the next time or even further down the road.
I love that. I love that. Now, I just have to ask real quick because I read about your classroom and I saw that you have typewriters there. And so I'm like, I cannot get through this podcast without asking specifically about what is the purpose of the typewriters in your classroom? What do the students do there? Are they just for decoration? Or are they actually typing on old school typewriters?
They are actually typing on old school typewriters.
So the typewriter, come on now.
They could type anything. They could type. So they type out lists sometimes, but I've had students type out pages of stories because they want that old school effect on their writing.
What? I love that. I went to a conference not that long ago and they had a live poet there and she brought a typewriter in and she had these beautiful little, like kind of like index cards and you gave her any topic that you wanted. And she typed out like a 1 stanza, 2 stanza quick poem based on the topic of your choice. And there was like a long line of people. We were all in line to get our personalized poem on the typewriter. So it was so cool. I could see that also being like a fun, like, let me express my emotions click, 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 click on that typewriter.
Yeah. So during
So
the day, like that writing class, sometimes it's just click, 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 click. I'm like, okay, they're really writing something passionately.
that. I absolutely love that. I want to be a student in your classroom. I want to be clicking away on the typewriter and, and sharing all that orality in the classroom and talking. I mean, I was the kind of kid, if I couldn't talk in the classroom, like I was just so disengaged. I was, I just felt like I was going to explode every minute. And then all that silence and I needed so much stimulation to keep myself engaged. And oftentimes I was seen as a problem kid, but I wasn't a problem kid. I was just a very, engaged learner, an oral learner. And I needed a lot of opportunities to orally process what I was learning. And I know I see that with my own students in my classroom, that they struggle with essay writing. And I do something very similar to you. I have them answer the entire essay orally first. And we do a lot of oral essay writing. And I'm like, don't even worry about typing. Let's just answer this essay orally. And we'll even break it down. So like between 5 kids, they have to answer the essay orally and they can only each do one sentence at a time. And they have to build off each other's sentences. You do the hook, you do the topic sentence, you do the details, you do the conclusion, and then they break up the pieces and tell the whole essay together. And a lot of times I'm like, forget the hand typing. You know what? Let's just hit those voice notes and now just tell the essay that you just told me and that you just told your partner, tell it to the computer. And when we get that first draft down, some of the kids, their typing is just slow. All the thinking with the having to figure out how to spell it, how to punctuate it.
Yeah.
Let's just get it down. Then we can print it, we can revise it. And it's helped me as a teacher just move our class along because we're waiting for those 4 kids who are taking forever to type something. Who says they have to type it?
Yes. Who says that they have to
type it?
Yeah. There's so many features and opportunity now that we don't have to stay in this rigid box because our students don't thrive in that rigid box.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's their ideas and they feel amazing.
Yeah.
That they were able to keep up with the other students. And so I've opened it up. My whole class can voice type now. My whole class can use narration software. They can all use Google Read and Write, or even on, Google Docs, you can just do the voice typing right in the tools menu. It's no longer just for students with IEPs. It's anyone who needs it to be successful, to get over their writing constipation.
Yeah. Yes. And that confidence builds that engagement. When you are more confident, you are connected.
Absolutely. I have a little bit on my YouTube page where I talk about oral essay writing and how it can benefit students from oral cultures as well. So I'm sure that, sometimes it can get a little tough, being a teacher, as we all have definitely felt the struggle from time to time. I like to ask everyone, if you could create a student success playlist that just keeps you motivated. It can be song, it could be a quote, it could be a story that inspires you to keep on teaching and keep on leading. What would it be?
So my song playlist is probably like a mixture of different things.
I
like a little bit of hip hop, some gospel in there, and let's throw in a little bit of country because I love Dolly Parton.
Like a product of the 90s. So everyone loved Dolly. Grew up in the 90s.
Yeah. But for quotes, something that I always tell myself and I tell my kids, you can do hard things. So that keeps me propelled and keeps me going. And always staying rooted in my faith. That's my true north.
I absolutely love that. And you know what? We can all do hard things, right? In fact, hard things are supposed to be hard. I think sometimes we get so stuck on like, well, this is really hard. And it's like also okay, right?
Yes.
And I think that comes with being an equity teacher leader, right? Being an equity teacher leader is going to be hard some days, and you got to have faith, right? Some days it's going to be messy, and some days you're not going to be winning at all. But if we look at the sum of your effort over the entire year, you will transform your classroom, you will transform teaching, you will transform your school. Have that faith, right? And keep on leading. I absolutely love that. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, either to learn more about what you shared on the podcast today or to learn a little bit more about your business, Lit in Love, how would they get in touch with you?
So they can contact me on litinlove.com or on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those sources, all under Lit in Love.
Absolutely. Love that. We will be dropping that link as well into the show notes. Thank you so much, Comfort, for being on the podcast. You are an inspirational teacher. There is no doubt in my mind why they chose you as the 2023 Milken Award winner for the state of Illinois. Can't wait to see who's going to be following in your footsteps in the 2024. But thank you again so much. Just remember, to all the listeners out there, you don't need a fancy title. You don't need a fancy position to be an equity leader. Every teacher is a leader, and every teacher can be an equity teacher leader. In fact, it takes all of us to move the dial forward for our students. We can all lead from our classrooms with equity in our hearts and make a difference. Hopefully today we share some strategies with you that you can try it in your classroom, and we look forward to our next podcast and our next opportunity to learn and communicate together. Thank you so much.
Put the work in, yeah, I earned it. It's my destiny.